Montana voters head to the polls in less than a month to cast ballots in the state's June 3rd primary. Now, topping the list of races, the U.S. Senate, House, and governor, not to mention 2 seats on the Montana Supreme Court. Justice Jim Shea is running unopposed for his job, but Justice LAURIE McKinnon has 2 challengers. MTN's Jay Cohn takes a closer look.
It's unusual for a sitting Supreme Court justice to attract 2 challengers in a primary election. But that's the case for Justice LAURIE McKinnon. Last June, McKinnon announced plans to step away from the court at the end of this year. Helena attorney Mike Black and Missoula lawyer Mar Scott jumped into the race. But then McKinnon changed her mind. The Maryland native has served on the High Court for the past 8 years. Prior to that, she was a district judge in north central Montana.
What really turned me around was I went to an appellate judges conference in D.C., and I had made friends with other appellate judges across the nation, and they gave me some very good advice and said, you know, the worst reason to not run is fear of losing. We're running a campaign.
Scott, a U of M law school grad, has practiced in Montana for 4 decades. His background includes time in the U.S. Navy and on Capitol Hill as an aide to Senator Max Baucus. The Helena native's 39-year legal career includes everything from personal injury to business law, with an emphasis now on domestic relations.
The reason I got into the race was because Justice McKinnon announced last June that she was not going to seek re-election. So I've been practicing law for 40 years, general civil practice, primarily though in the area of domestic relations. And I thought it was a good opportunity to maybe make a run for the Supreme Court and be able to bring that expertise and that experience to the court.
Scott also believes strongly in Montana's nonpartisan judicial races. Maintaining the court's independence, he says, is a top priority.
Ethically, a justice should not take a position on any issue because we're supposed to be independent. When you look at the 3 branches of government, certainly the executive branch is political, the legislative branch is political, but the judiciary needs to be independent. It needs to be separate in order for the 3 branches to work like they're supposed to.
Helena attorney Mike Black brings a wealth of legal experience to the table as well. The Havre native was Montana's assistant attorney general from 2011 to 2015, where he was front and center defending Montana statutes from constitutional challenges.
I have deep roots in this state. I have a good understanding of Montana heritage and Montana history. And I think that that's really important when we're looking at the issues that are going to be facing the Montana Supreme Court.
The past 2 contested Supreme Court races in Montana have looked anything but nonpartisan. Tons of out-of-state dark money flowing into the race, a scenario likely to be repeated this year.
I've fought those groups for years, both in private practice and when I was working for the state. We had a lot of success against those groups, and I know that they don't like me very much. And they don't like me very much mostly because I want to preserve the Montana Constitution for the people of Montana and not necessarily for the interests that they're representing. And a lot of times those interests are national interests. They want to control the court for particular agendas. And I'm not interested in that. And they know I'm not interested in that, and they're going to attack me.
You don't have any control over the independent expenditures.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you play into the game. My reputation is more important than winning or losing this race. And I intend to conduct myself absolutely above the board in every respect.
All 3 candidates are bankrolling their own campaigns. Mike Black has raised $99,000, including $55,000 from himself. Mar Scott has raised $39,000, but that includes $30,000 from himself. And Justice McKinnon has raised only $12,000, and that includes $8,500 from herself. So while it was the prospect of a bruising re-election race that had Justice McKinnon unsure whether to seek re-election, that's exactly what she's facing now. The top 2 vote-getters in the June primary advance on to the November general election in what looks to be yet another contentious race for a seat on Montana's 7-member court. In Billings, Jay Cohn reporting for MTN News.
Thanks, Jay. Now, Supreme Court terms here in Montana run 8 years. That's the longest term of any statewide office.